6, the Christian Council president talks about crime, the role of the church, and the role the residents can play.
We have more on the Abaco Haitian village tragedy. And The Crown stays in the valley. First at 6 starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. And now, first at 6. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Every Day.
Good evening and welcome to the Bahamas Tonight, first at 6. I'm Andrew Knowles. Thanks so much for tuning in. The bloodshed continues to pour into the new year as one man was shot and killed last night and another was left in hospital. Police say it was around 7:20 Wednesday evening when gunshots rang out on Buttonwood Avenue in Pinewood Gardens, an area identified as one of the hot spots. A crowd of onlookers watched as police detectives combed the area for clues, while the victim's body lay covered near an apartment complex. Here's Assistant Commissioner of Police, Anthony Ferguson.
The police is working with preliminary information at this very early stage that the deceased, along with the male who was shot in the leg, was standing in that area along with a number of other male persons when occupants from a small vehicle pulled up. The occupants got out, opened fire on the man.
That resulted in the victim receiving multiple gunshot wounds to the upper body. He died on the scene. We're told the second shooting victim was shot in the leg. He was taken to hospital where he is listed in stable condition. ACP Ferguson could not say at the time the number of suspects believed to be involved in the shooting.
We are very early in our investigations and we are working with some information at this very early stage, but as we get more details, we will be more than happy to provide you with those information.
Police are making their all too familiar plea for the public's assistance in solving this homicide, which comes within 24 hours of the country's first homicide for 2014. The church speaking out on the crime issue. Today, the Christian Council president talked to our Clint Watson about the responsibility of the religious body and what must be done to effectively fight the crime war.
With 2 murders already committed 2 days into the new year, President of the Bahamas Christian Council, Reverend Ranford Patterson, believes that the power to effect change lies with the people. However, he also admits that there must be greater unity among a major stakeholder, the church.
There are too many fractions in the church. And I believe the devil knows if he can keep us divided, he can conquer. But if we can just put aside our titles, our positions, and find a way that we can come together to work together so that we can achieve the mandate I believe that God has placed in our hearts to do. We have to come together. And there must be, let me just say this, Glenn, there must be a groundswell if change is going to take place in our country.
Reverend Patterson doesn't accept the criticism that the church is not doing enough to help curb the crime problem. While he admits there's always more they can do, he acknowledges that much has already been done and continues on a consistent basis.
I can't imagine what the Bahamas would be like without the church. Can't imagine it. The outreach that we are now doing, if the government had to take on the responsibility of all the things that the church is now doing, the government couldn't do it.
Now, Reverend Patterson also believes that residents have a responsibility. Coming up at 7, we'll tell you what he feels that responsibility is. But for now, Clint Watson for ZNS Network News.
5 temporary criminal courts were expected to open in Banklane this month in an effort to promote swift justice and break the backlog of cases. However, as Fern Carey tells us, those courts won't open on schedule as anticipated.
It was anticipated that 5 additional temporary criminal courts would come on stream this month, pushing the number of criminal courts functioning at the same time to 10. However, there is still more work to be done before those temporary courts are ready. Attorney General Alison Maynard Gibson says the new courts, which are expected to reduce the backlog of cases while ensuring a more efficient justice system, will not be completed until sometime next month.
The Prime Minister announced that he has asked the Ministry of Works to have the contractor that has been engaged to work on the temporary courts, to work under the lights. That means around the clock. We expect to have those courts operational in March of this year. That's what we're all aiming for. We're emphasizing swift justice. Now, in our communities, we know who is committing offenses. We have information. It is very important for people who have information to give it to the police.
Meantime, Minister of State for Legal Affairs, Damian Gomez, says the process is already underway to ensure that the new courts are adequately staffed.
At an appropriate time, the Judicial and Legal Services Commission will examine the applications of persons to serve as temporary judges to fill those facilities. And the Attorney General has already begun the process of identifying staff to man those facilities in support of the court system.
The 5 temporary courts will be housed in the former Police Prosecutions Building on Bank Lane. Now, there's still a lot of work left to be done. However, the Attorney General says work is being done around the clock to ensure that the courts will be open by March. Fern Carey, ZNS Network News.
A male driver killed in a 2-car crash on John F. Kennedy Drive yesterday evening became the country's second fatality victim for 2014. The accident happened in the area of the West Ridge and Blake Road. Police say the fatal incident occurred shortly after 7 p.m. when a Nissan Laurel and a Mercedes-Benz, both traveling east, collided and ended up in bushes.
Found out that in the Nissan Laurel, the driver, a male, he succumbed to injuries received, and 2 female passengers who were in the vehicle, they received injuries and were transported to the hospital via EMS. The driver was a female driver of the Mercedes-Benz. She received minor injuries and was sent to the hospital also.
When our news team arrived on the scene, we saw the Nissan overturned in bushes. Superintendent Stephen Dean could not say at the time whether speed was a factor, but he used the opportunity to caution drivers.
Particularly when you travel on these major thoroughfares, to exercise great caution and care and watch the amount of speed that you might be driving at. And additionally too, this is no road to be with speed and the use of alcohol. With those mixture, it could cause problems. We are not implying that that's what happened in this matter, but we are putting that warning out to persons who might be driving along this route. We want to plea out to members of the public who might have been passing in this area during this time. Whatever information you have, whether how small it might be or insignificant it might seem, we want you to please contact police immediately so we can bring this matter to a closure.
In a statement yesterday, Transport Minister Glenys Hannah Martin urged motorists to drive with caution and care, paying attention to road signs, markings, and signals. She also urged the motoring public not to drive at a high speed or while under the influence of alcohol. Seat belts should be used and children should be properly secured in their seats. Now, she's also encouraging cyclists to always wear helmets, and pedestrians are encouraged to be alert on the streets. The Transport Minister also extending condolences to grieving families of the 2 fatality victims. She also calls for everyone to work together in 2014 in pursuance of a national commitment to drastically reduce the incidence of death and serious injury due to traffic accidents in the Bahamas. Still to come, Junkanoo fever in the north. We have the highlights.